Welcome, everybody. I want to thank my sister-in-law, Peggy Dewsberry, on the clarinet, my niece, Cara Dewsberry, on the piano, and my husband, Stephen Green, on the cello. And I want to welcome you all to this evening of a celebration of life of an amazing woman, my mother, Elise Dewsberry. We wanted this evening to reflect all of the things that my mother loved. She loved her family, and so we give thanks to all of you who came from all across the country to be with us and to remember with us this evening. As anyone who ever spent more than 5 minutes with my mother knew, she loved elephants. In particular, Indian elephants, the ones with the smaller ears, and preferably with their trunks up, because that was good luck. And so that's why you'll notice the plethora of elephants in the program and in the memorabilia table and everywhere that you look. She also loved music. While she was in college, as well as pursuing a nursing degree, she was also studying to be a concert pianist. And she thought she might want to be that one day, but she did wind up in nursing. But one of the favorite pieces that she learned to play was Rustle of Spring. That's what you just heard as the prelude when you were coming in, and it'll be the postlude at the end if you want to listen again. When I was a little girl, I remember very clearly that many an afternoon I would come home from school with like a scraped knee or some, imagined slight from a friend, and I would find Mom in the living room sitting at the piano, and I would sit on the bench next to her and sort of snuggle in under her arm, and she would play Rustle of Spring, and then everything would feel all right again. She passed on her love of music to all of us in the family. We're a very musical family, so it's only fitting that the evening that we planned for this evening is filled with music that she would have loved, presented by the people that she loved. Another thing that meant a lot to my mother was her faith, and so I'd like to call now on Steve McQueen, pastor of the Village Church that Mom and Dad have attended for the last 30 years. Steve, thank you.
There was something else that June loved, and that was Jerry Garcia ties, which I am wearing her favorite tie, but I checked Art out and he also has a Jerry Garcia tie on this evening. My predecessor, I met with him before I came to the Village Church, and he told me, he said, now June Dewsberry will be one of the best friends that you will have. She will be very supportive. And I said, how do you know that? She hasn't met me yet. And he said, she is pro-preacher. And I said, pro-preacher, what does that mean? Well, he said, she also has a number of preachers in her family. And I realized right then that there would be no schmoozing with June Dewsberry, because she already knew what pastors are really like. Now, she was a good supporter. And I think she understood something about preachers. When you become a minister, an elder in the United Methodist Church, you're asked a question. You've done 4 years of college, 3 years of seminary, 1 year of on trial, and then you appear before about 1,000 people, and the bishop asks you a series of questions. The very first question is this: do you believe in your heart that you are truly called according to the will of our Lord Jesus Christ to the ministry of elders? And the response that I gave and so many others have given is, I so believe. And it doesn't matter if it's the United Methodist denomination. Most of the other denominations have the same question, because it looks back to the past to the callings of Isaiah, Jeremiah, the Apostle Paul, Simon Peter. And I believe June understood that because she too had a calling. She had a calling to live out as best she could the life that God had given her, and to live it to the utmost. Now, June has certain political opinions. How many of you are in doubt about June's political opinion? Well, a mutual friend of hers and mine told me, I didn't know we had anyone like that living here at John Knox. But you always knew what June thought. Her face was easily read. But she had a calling. If you were hungry, she would give you food. If you were thirsty, she would give you drink. If you were sick, she would visit you. And if you were a stranger, she would offer you friendship. John 11:26 reads, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. And he looked at Martha and he said, do you believe this? And she said, yes, Lord, I believe. It made a difference in Martha's life, and it resulted in the life that June Dewsberry led here on earth and is presently living today. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. If you'd like to turn your program to inside the back page, you'll see honoring a mother's legacy on the left-hand side. I just wanted to report on the fundraising effort that I was involved with to raise some funds to upgrade the audio-visual capacity of some of the rooms here in John Knox Village. They don't all have this more modern setup. Mom was complaining frequently about the other rooms, so that's why we picked that particular thing. As far as I understand it, the dollar amount that's been raised so far is upwards of $9,000. I'd sure like to go out of here tonight knowing that it hit 10. I'm not going to pass the plate, but we might lock the doors. On the other hand, I have to admit, I didn't quite make it on this run from Clinton, Missouri, all the way here. Over 3 days' time. I got through the first 2 days, 21 miles each day, and then yesterday, Friday, I got 9 miles into it, and my ticker just didn't want to function anymore. I had atrial fib, and so that was all I could take. So maybe I'll finish that off at another time. So you can discount your donation for the 12 miles I did not cover. I have an uncle here who's going to leave the last N off his name on the check as a discount. It has 2 N's at the end. So you can do that too. Anyway, thank you so much for donations, any of you that have already given, and I'd just like to encourage those of you who have not to consider it, and it'll be to the benefit of John Knox Village. Now, as far as my tribute to my mother, what I wanted to say tonight, I wanted to tell a short story. My childhood, when I was in college, my freshman year, I was home for a break. Must have been in the winter because I remember it was snowing. And as young college men are wont to be, unfortunately, I was out with the guys Friday night, got pretty drunk and didn't make it home. I stayed at a friend's house that night. Didn't tell my parents. And to make matters worse, there was a huge blizzard that night. Got quite a bit of snow up in Toronto. So my parents were fretting all night long, wondering if I'd gone into a ditch and was dying somewhere. Anyway, the next morning I'd sobered up enough and drove myself home. And I got to the front door and I was met by, before I could even get in the front door, I was met by both my parents. And my dad had this mischievous grin on his face that said to me, "What an idiot." My mother, on the other hand, had a very nasty scowl on her face. She was very angry with me and basically read me the riot act. So, on one hand, my father kind of laughing at my situation because I was still pretty hungover, and my mother very upset. And she said to me, "Don't you ever do that again." And then she turned and left, and my dad said to me, "I think you need to go out and shovel the driveway." We had this much wet snow on the driveway. So I'd shovel a few, we had a double driveway, by the way, and it was relatively long. So I get out there with the shovel, and I'm shoveling away, and I'd shovel a few times and stop because I was exhausted, feeling ill. Anyway, about halfway through it, my dad comes to the door, and he says, "Why don't you come in for lunch? Your mother's made some soup for you." To collect myself here. What I learned from that experience has basically guided me. I saw the justice of God and the mercy. And that has enabled me to be who I am in terms of not being afraid to fail, because I knew my parents loved me no matter what stupid nonsense I did. My mother loved me despite our huge difference in political opinions. But that's given me a freedom to be who I am. And I really have appreciated that. And I just wanted to share that with you. That was my mother and my father. So thank you.
I'm grateful to be here because June has given me a reason to be famous. I'm a double cousin. You know what that is, don't you? No. My mother and her mother were sisters. My dad and her dad were brothers. That means I got cut out of a lot of relatives. Because everything was double. But you know, June has, along with Ruth here, and Ralph and Bill, were very close to us. I think that double relationship was one of the reasons we were so close. Even though they lived in India, miles away, every night we would pray for that family. The thing that distinguished June, we called her Junie, was that she was in my parents' wedding. She was 3.5 years old. She was a flower girl. So the wedding was about halfway over, I guess, and Junie decided she was tired. So she laid down right in front of the wedding party on the floor, raised her legs up in the air, and everybody got to see her panties. My mother was horrified. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. My dad thought it was hilarious. And he always, after that, reminded Judy that he loved her. So Judy became, I think, and I'm sorry for the rest of you people, but I think she was his favorite. We're going to miss her. What a wonderful woman.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kara Dewsberry. I'm June and Art's youngest granddaughter. And this evening I wanted to share with you a poem that I wrote in tribute to my grandmother. Some of you may have read it on Facebook right after she died, but I wanted to share it with you again this evening. And it's entitled, My Grandma's Hands. And I hope you'll forgive me if I have to pause sometimes. My grandma's hands are beautiful, with fingers long and slender, trimmed with perfect manicures, and 3 rings to remember the day that she said yes, the day she said, I do, and the day 60 years later when she said, I still love you. My grandma's hands are soft and warm, like all good mothers' hands. They raised 3 children of her own and welcomed their little friends. And as the years rolled on their way, her hands held 4 grandgirls dear. They gently caressed their tiny heads and applauded their growth each year. My grandma's hands are busy and strong, as she has always been. They've grasped walking sticks and zipline bars and cheered each Royals win. They've snapped pictures and cooked meals in places near and far. And no matter what she does, they always raise the bar. They've nursed sick, directed committees, and helped neighbors in need, and turned our times together into sweet memories. My grandma's hands are still now, their final works complete. And as I hold them, in my own, their warmth fades with her heartbeat. But all they have done and been remains safely in memory's land. Though for a little while, I must let go of my grandma's hands.
A couple of years ago, there was a movie that came out called Lady Bird with Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf. I don't know if you saw it or not, but at the time everyone was raving about how true it was to the mother-daughter relationship. The tension between, everyone remembered this massive tension they had with their mother and the fights and this and that, and everyone was saying, oh, this was so true. And I would just have to shake my head and say, nope, not for me. Doesn't ring any bells at all. Not with my mom. That's not the kind of mom she was. My mom would never give her opinion unless it was asked for. She didn't compete, she didn't judge, and she didn't try to live vicariously. She just loved and supported. She was very supportive of my love of performing and singing. She arranged for me to take voice lessons when I was very young, and when I sang solos in church, she would sit right in the very front row, and if I started to stray away from perfect pitch, Mom would let me know. When I was older, both my parents, my mom and my dad, traveled all over the country. Every time I was doing a show somewhere, they would show up and be there to see what I was up to. And once I decided to try my hand at actually writing a song. That's not what I usually do, but I collaborated with a good friend of mine, a writer, Carl Ritchie, who wrote lyrics, and I wrote the music for a song that I sang to her on her 60th birthday. And then I sang it again a couple years ago at my own 60th birthday. And now I'm going to play for you a recording of that song. It's called It's Always June. I would not possibly be able to sing it for you at the moment, but I have a recording and it's going to be a background to a slideshow of images from my mother's extraordinary life.
When the river fills children's faces beam through a layer of ice cream. You know it's June. It's always June. When the bloom is on the rose, you know it's June. When the birds all strut and pose, you know it's June. When a woman's face just glows because her lover has proposed, you know it's June. It's always June. It's always June that wakes my heart and makes it sing. It's always June that gives my heart the truest ring. It's always June that puts a smile on everything. You know it's June. It's always June. When a mother loves a child, you know it's June. When a husband still beguiled, you know it's June. When a world so rough and wild becomes gentle, safe and mild, you know it's June. It's always June. It's always June who wakes my heart and makes it sing. It's always June who gives her art the truest ring.
I do not presume to know the power, the fullness of the power of the Almighty. But this I do believe. This I do believe, that June heard that anthem. June heard that anthem. That daughter, that wife, that mother, that grandmother, good job, that grandmother, that sister, that sister-in-law, she heard it. That aunt who didn't forget the birthdays, who's going to send those birthday cards? No one's going to take her place. We don't expect that. She will do this. I want to suggest to you, it's not that anybody's going to pick up all the things that she has done, but what her passing does say to us is that in the missing of her, that all of us has to do what we're able to do to pick up the pieces that we're able to pick up, that there still can be wholeness, that each of us can still be strong as we can be. June was strong. I want to say something. Where are you, Bruce? Bruce was a winner. I know he said to me when I first saw him, he didn't finish the race. Pooey. In my book, he won. So his heart said, okay, buddy, let's knock it off for a while. He finished that race. One thing Mom told all of her children, give it a try. Give it a try. Do it the best you can. And she never, ever got on their case because they had to fold for a reason beyond their control. You never have to feel, ever, that you had to fold. You just had to pause. She was always proud of each of her children for what they did and how they did it. Her grandchildren, I became nauseated sometimes listening to her. I mean, really. I mean, even Art got tired of it. I mean, she got on his case repeatedly for liking strawberry ice cream. She's always, don't like strawberry ice cream, always, and it was only recently that I discovered that she liked chocolate chip ice cream, or the mint chocolate chip. I didn't know that until just lately. She kept that undercover. And always on him for liking strawberry. And as I was trying to sneak the strawberry. For whatever reason I could give, I would give Art strawberry. Strawberry this, strawberry. If there was that strawberry dish left over, I think Art should have had whatever was left over of the strawberry this noon. He should get it all. Nobody else should get any. I hunted for 40 years for an elephant sitting in an outhouse. The best I could find was what was sitting right on the edge of just on the edge of the thing. Not an outhouse, but that's the best I could find. Just to make her sit up and notice. Because she had all these lovely elephants. They were always so proper. I wanted an improper elephant. June was a woman with many talents, and she didn't waste them. She used them. She used them for the benefit of all. What do you mean? You're 98 years old. Here, let me help you. Become 99. And she would give you her help. What do you mean? You can't breathe well. Let me help you work through the paperwork so you can get access to the medical attention you need. What do you mean you can't? And she would help you. Can. June was a helper to those who needed help. Well, enough about all of that. You know all that stuff. Let us look at June, and let us look at ourselves and say, as she said over and over again, you can, we can. Together, we can be better people. Together. We can be, as our pastor said today, I appreciate it so much that he turned to Matthew 25 to lift up the very essence of who she was. When did I see you hungry? When did I see you thirsty? And he lifted it all up because that's who she was. Those of you who knew her parents knew that she learned at their knee what she had to do. Not follow in their footsteps exactly. She didn't turn to the mission field, but she never forgot what the mission was. And that was to help those who needed it. Oh my goodness, you had a great mom. But of course, she had a great daughter. She knew how to do daughters. And she knew how to do sons. And she did her sons very well. But most of all, I think, she knew how to pick husbands. God bless you. And you, and you, and you. And God bless you, the godchildren, the grandchildren, who she loved so very, very, very much.
All 5 of their children are here today. My cousin Kathleen, along with her husband John, and their children, Zachary, Hannah, Jonathan, and Mary Grace. Thank you. My cousin Christine, my cousin Jennifer and her husband Wayne, my cousin Kimberly, who came all the way from Berlin, Mom's sister-in-law Joyce Bauer, and her children, my cousins Deb and Mark. From the Ralph Bauer family, my cousin David, his wife Pam, their children, Elizabeth and Alan, and Brad would have been here if he could have. My cousin Suzanne and her daughter Shacey, my cousin Dan Bauer and his daughter Maddie, Mom's double cousin Bob and his wife Evelyn, Mom's cousin from here in the village, Carol Jennings, who's been just so amazing this whole time helping us plan this because she was here at the village and was able to be a go-between for everything. My dad's cousins, Bob Dewsberry, Barbara Conklin, and Marianne Danielson, thank you so much for coming. And of course, my brother, Bruce, his wife, Peggy, their daughter, Kara, my brother, Fred, his wife, Sandra, and their children, Adrian and Lisa, and my husband, Stephen, and our daughter, Rebecca. I know that Dad is thankful to have all of you here with us tonight. We want to invite all of you to join us after this celebration. In the next room there will be desserts and beverages and more opportunity to share our memories. But first, we want to move to the perfect way to bring this beautiful evening to a close with some more beautiful music from my baby brother, Fred Dewsberry.